Foley stage probably has a machete. I'm not sure that every Foley artist actually has a machete at their house.
So to start off, can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Tara Blume, and I'm a Foley artist. Normally in a Foley session, they will roll the beeps and then picture will follow, and then we will perform in sync with picture. I picked Evil Dead 2, the chainsaw build.
Groovy.
Mostly because I figured that I could replicate what's in that video. It's like not very precise, and like the sound quality was not very good. First off, I muted the sound and then watched it a couple times on silently, because what I was trying to do is match picture. That's normally how we get a project. There is no sound. I knew I wanted to use the machete just to give a blade sound for the chainsaw. When I was first performing it, I was imagining closing this on itself. So we're getting like an insert sound of it, but it wasn't really, sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. It wasn't really giving me an insert sound. So as I was performing it, I ended up just going with picture. So you can hear how the cavity of it is giving you like an insert sound, and then just the blade ricocheting at the same time was giving me the blade sound. I'm not actually looking at picture while performing. That was the biggest challenge to me. The gate outside my door, I took from my neighbor because they left it out for trash. I was going to change it into like a succulent wall. The other thing is a plantar fasciitis, like a foot fascia roller. Like the first wood squeak that happens. Like I've always noticed the squeak on that thing. The only chain I have is a bike lock chain. Like I know how certain things sound in my kitchen, and I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just because of the nature of the job. I don't have real light bulbs at my house. They're all energy saving, and they don't sound like light bulbs. So
that's really hard to do.
I ended up using like an old lantern that I have and a chain on it. But if I had a light bulb, it would have probably sounded better. I just grabbed a bunch of different metal objects that I have just to create different metal rattles. In the visual, it's like running on screws and stuff, so you can like see a bunch of different metal rattling. There's like brackets that get thrown down one after the other. The closest thing I have to that are spurs. The screwdriver we typically wouldn't cover, but I just figured that I should do something because this is a Foley exercise, so I just used a screw on the machete. Every Foley stage probably has a machete or two. I'm not sure that every Foley artist actually has a machete at their house, but I do. I also have a full-size axe, and this crowbar, which is extra big. So I just wanted to provide like a metal squeak and then like a closure sound. And I'm holding it with my foot because I also didn't want to edit it, and I wanted it to happen just like the visual happens. So like you have to like really be precise with your action. So that became kind of difficult just because it had to be right in sync and I wasn't really watching the picture. So I actually built that prop, the leather straps for Westworld, for the samurai character, which you can't hear very much of, but it's in there. That take was pretty hard to do because I was fighting the level of the metal on the table to the leather. The metal was overtaking the leather sound. I added a piece of cloth underneath the piece of metal I was grabbing. The leather harness that tightened. I would have done like a rope grab kind of sound, and then I would have also done a leather creak on top of that. But having to do it simultaneously was definitely a challenge. The crock pot was right in front of me, so my mind immediately was like, what can I stuff in there that's going to give me like a sound that something is going into something. Also, I was recording in this space. I was worried about it because it's obviously super live. The ceilings are really high and the floor is wood, and actually worked out. Honestly, when I chose this room, it's because of this surface. Use this as like a base of sound. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
So that is an actual handsaw. That was just giving me like a large plastic kind of chainsaw body kind of thing. The other thing is actually an airsoft handgun. I obviously needed the sound of the chainsaw starting, like the cable pull. I would have used something way different on the Foley stage. I probably would have used a chain up against like a big body of plastic or something. But this pretty well. I just used the body of a bucket. And it's actually almost comical because of the visual, because it doesn't work. He pulls it, it like dies out, and she like expels like air. That's actually a sound effect. Foley of a chainsaw would be the handling of a chainsaw, the grab of the cable, and then running of a chainsaw is an effect sound, not Foley. So for like a gunshot would be an effect, and then the movement of the gun would be Foley. This is actually a garden, trellis stick. Those whooshing sounds are always made by a doily. A doily is just a thin stick, when thrusted through the air, creates a high-pitched whoosh sound. The different shapes of different sticks make different lower whooshes or higher pitched whooshes. It's kind of interesting.
Why didn't you just do the sound effects on your own and then in edit try and like match it up?
Because I'm an artist, not an editor. So it was way easier for me to just perform it right in sync.